the name of Dean Andrews, indicated that this conversation took place between Oswald and a man named Clay Bertrand. Okay? When Garrison attempted to prosecute Clay Shaw, the director of the trademark in New Orleans, part of his whole, the crux of the whole case came down first to two broad issues. One was there a conspiracy to kill John Kennedy? And two, if there was Clay Shaw a part of that conspiracy? As to point number one, the jury in New Orleans and the news coverage in New Orleans, which was much more unbiased than what we got in other parts of the country, made it very clear that the New Orleans jury unanimously agreed that yes, indeed, there had been a conspiracy to kill John Kennedy. Just as an aside, it was a subpoena from Jim Garrison that forced Life magazine to finally relinquish total absolute control over the approved film and allowed it, and then some of Garrison's people copied it, and then they bootleg copies here and there, and that's how the Zapruder film actually got out to the American public. Keep in mind that until 1975, the American public never got a chance to see the Zapruder film, and even most of the Warren Commission never saw it run as a movie, you know, and to those, I think probably everybody here, at least at one time or another, has seen the very traumatic Zapruder film, and it's very obvious what went on there. Okay. Sidetrack a little bit. Now, as to the second point, was Clay Shaw a member of this conspiracy? What that boiled down to, basically, was that they had this Clay or Clem Bertrand in conversation with Oswald, and they were plotting to kill the president, supposedly. So the issue became, was Clay or Clem Bertrand one and the same as Clay Shaw? And basically what that boiled down to at the trial was the fact that when Clay Shaw was arrested, taken to the New Orleans jail, he was asked by the jailer there, do you have an alias? And he said, yes, Clem Bertrand. All right, and he wrote it down on the jail card, okay? But at the trial judge refused to allow this jail card to be admitted as evidence. And I need to go back and check on this, but I assume for the reason of Fifth Amendment, you cannot be forced to give testimony against yourself. So what that really left, all that left Garrison was this jailer, this New Orleans police jailer, who took the stand and who told the story that yes, he had asked Clay Shaw if he had an alias, and yes, Clay Shaw had said it was Clem Bertrand, and had written it on the card, and that was about it. Later in the trial, in front of the jury, the trial judge blurted out and said, well, I don't believe that damn cop. So it was somewhat, which is really, you know, I would think should be reversible error in the trial. But anyway, when it got down to it then, the jury was asked to decide the fate of Clay Shaw based almost solely on the testimony of this policeman who the trial judge had already said he didn't believe. And as a result, they had reasonable doubt. Okay, any of y'all been on jury, you know they tell you that if you have reasonable doubt, you got to find him not guilty. So they had reasonable doubt, and they found Clay Shaw not guilty. And that's very basically, it was kind of the crux of Clay Shaw trial. Now, Dean Andrews later on said that yes, there really was a real Clay Bertrand, but that wasn't, he had only made up that name, and that because he didn't want to get people in trouble with the FBI. That's what Dean Andrews said. All right, tonight we have with us Mike Smith. Mike is now from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Mike has a very interesting story to tell, and the bottom line is that according to Mike, and if everything he says is true, then there's a very real possibility that Mike Smith, the man we have with us tonight, is indeed Clay Bertrand. So we'll hear his story.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myers. I had an opportunity today to tape what I was talking about. And the reason that I say there is an opportunity is I would like to make a comment on memory itself. People remember different things in different ways. I know this, that if I have a memory that is of a visual nature, and I am able to incorporate it into symbols, the vision itself, to a degree, goes away. For this same reason, I think that this relates to this lady just as well. I didn't write down my conversation with Oswald until 1982. Since that time, I have written it down, I would imagine, about 20 times, in different correspondence, and finally I got it down pat to where I have a laundry list, and the one that I really like the best is the one that's in your possession. It's succinct. It covers the elements that I can say, yes, this exactly happened. But it's symbols. It's symbols in my mind. Now, the particular symbols that I can give you on a fast run-through was that we were introduced in a bar that was underneath Guy Bannister's office. Oswald was introduced to me as a man who was renting office space upstairs. Oswald commented on a book by Sartre on Castro that I had. Oswald proved himself exceedingly knowledgeable not only of Castro, but I thought of this book in particular.
Excuse me, Mike, could you back up just a little bit and bring us up into the Captain General about why you were there and how you got introduced? And about what time that was?
It was July the 20th, and let me just give out the crux of it, and then we can back into it if it is necessary. This is by the way, he was introduced to me as Al Heidel phonetically. We commented on the book itself. We discussed that book. He mentioned, he noticed the fact that I worked at Nishu. He evinced a desire to work at Nishu itself, which I thought was odd for a man that would be renting office space in a building. We went over number series tests. He showed a proficiency in number series tests. The conversation went around to where did I originally come from. Texas was mentioned. Oswald and I discussed Dallas to a great degree, including the Terminal Annex building, which is a bus daily plaza. Mr. Oswald did not seem interested in this particular conversation, so I tried to gracefully change the subject by making the statement, it is very improbable that you and I would have mutual friends that would know each other, because when I was in Dallas, I went by an alias. I went by the name of John Michael Powers. The alias in this case was a name given by my stepfather. Oswald retorted immediately, really, when I lived in Fort Worth, I went by an alias of Lee Harvey Oswald. In other words, reversing, giving out his name. I would think I was probably one person in 10,000 that would have recognized the name, and I said, oh, you are the guy that defected to Russia, aren't you? Oswald agreed, said he did not wish to discuss this. In the area of cause and effect after this, when Oswald finally bought a round of drinks, he remarked that he was on short money because his wife was out of town. The conversation after that went into theoretical communism. I was a communist at that time. We were discussing to a great extent the viability of an American Communist Party free of Russian ties. At this point, and this is a laundry list, but this is the way it went. At this point, a man I later knew to be Jack Martin entered the bar, sat himself beside Oswald in a way that Oswald stopped talking about what he was talking about and obviously became withdrawn and wished to speak no more. Jack Martin, in case I'm sure that most of you know Jack Martin was an employee of Bannister's Detective Agency, which was upstairs over the place where we were having our discussion. At this point, I moved away from them because I could see that I was interfering. In other words, I was making him clam up. I went away, I came back, Martin is gone. Oswald's demeanor changed. I cannot explain the change of the demeanor, and I cannot explain the next shift in conversation, but Lee Harvey Oswald at that point wanted to discuss shooting Jack Kennedy, which was just as off the wall as an earthquake in Wills Point. I was taken aback. I considered this a dangerously seditious area of conversation. I went through what I would call the liberal knee-jerk things of saying, oh, well, Lyndon would be worse. Kennedy's domestic good outweighs his foreign evil, and suddenly I got pissed. When I did, I quoted from a book. Some English major someplace will be able to tell me what book it is from because I can almost see it on the page. But I said, Lee, and this is a quote from a novel someplace, Lee, back in the days of William Tell, a German emperor conquered Switzerland. This emperor rode through the streets of Bern in a parade of triumph, and a patriot from an overhanging window threw a bladder of goat's blood in his lap. Tell you what, Lee, let's not shoot Kennedy, let's throw a bladder of goat's blood in his lap. This is cause and effect, this is laundry list, this is absolutely, at that point the conversation was terminated. This is a cause and effect, this is a laundry list, this is a casual conversation. If this conversation was recorded, as I am sure under the circumstances it was recorded, it would show that we had a mutual fealty to Fidel Castro, that we discussed Dallas in general and Dealey Plaza in particular, that we discussed the shooting of John Kennedy, that we discussed the vantage point of an overhanging window, that we discussed by the mutuality of types of assault, triangulation of fire, that we discussed a parade. And thank you very much, because that ends the laundry list. Thank you very much. My rationale for feeling sure that it was recorded is that Jack Martin, who I did not know then, but who I introduced, and as a matter of fact became a good friend with later, I would say good friend. Jack Martin was the one that came in and interrupted the conversation when it got ragged. Jack Martin was directly upstairs in, one would assume, in Guy Bannister's office. Jack Martin also was an excellent wiretap man. Jack Martin worked for the state police as a wiretap man after he left Guy Bannister. If I am in the lion's den and I feel a pain in my toe, I do not necessarily believe it is a sugar. For that reason, I would say that would be my rationale for strongly suspecting that it would be reported. And thanks for the question.
Mike, you had expressed at that time you were talking very pro-Congress, right?
Yes, I was.
All right. All right. Were you doing that strictly on your own, or were you doing that at the behest of others?
Thank you very much. Right. On my background, thanks very much, Larry, for the opportunity today. I did a two-half tape today. I did that a heck of a lot looser, didn't it? Wasn't it looser? Okay, I also did a loose tape on what I would call my own intelligence background. My own intelligence background is that I can give you, and as a matter of fact, I would like to do it under questioning. I can give you strong, under question, strong reasons for believing that I was enrolled in Project Artichoke. Does this ring a bell with you? The sodium pentothal. And also that I was recruited for the Nags Head, North Carolina defectors coup in 1957. My reasons for thinking the artichoke, of course, some of these are subjective. I consider myself to be a man of considerable intelligence. Also had the background of being a juvenile delinquent, very much like Oswald. And I am dyslexic. In the area of just psychology, there is nobody that is harder to condition than a juvenile delinquent, highly intelligent dyslexic. However, under deep hypnosis conditions, these are the most ideal subjects.
Was Oswald dyslexic?
Yes, sir, he sure was. He couldn't spell a lick. And also, when I talked to him, he would, on the human side, away from the laundry list, on the human side, he would mispronounce words, butcher them totally, showing them that he had read them in a book and even read them wrong in the book, wasn't spelling them in the head, but he would use them in their perfect context, in their perfect way.
How do you think he learned Russian?
I think that he learned Russian, first of all, on his own at Atsugi under someone's prompting, and during the period when he underwent the hardship discharge and so forth, and he was at El Toro and nobody knew where he was. Monterey language school ain't a heck of a way along, that ain't far away from El Toro.
All right, so in other words, in the Cassin Jammer bar, you were basically acting out a charade, right?
This is the way that I looked at it. I knew about my own intelligence back, or if you like, brush throughs with them. Yeah, I had the connection of artichoke, and the moment I get to the connection of the Nag Said defective, which I forgot. And my feeling was that all I knew was that I could be and was encouraged to be an alcoholic, communist, scofflaw who went from one government job and one defense industry after another without the necessity of normal security checks, and in fact, when security checks were initiated, they were quickly abandoned. The reason for this, thanks very much for leading into it. If I were in artichoke, it would have been perfectly illegal. And this is one of the reasons that I think that I was in artichoke, because of the legality. Artichoke, by the way, was experiments on sodium pentothal. Well, this was we didn't have that good stuff around. Mescaline was the best stuff that they could give me.
Did you meet him accidentally or on purpose?
I think we were steered to go.
Would you tell a little bit about the bartender without mentioning his name?
Sure, but I'm going to go back on this, on the utter legality of the artichoke.
Was that part of Project MK Ultra?
It was the predecessor of MK Ultra, yes, sir. It was the predecessor of MK Ultra. Oswald was under Ultra, I was under artichoke. They were easier on me in those days. This is better use. And when, after a period of being a juvenile delinquent, all of this, I had the very definitely the record for the training command in the number of gigs received in basic training. There was a good reason for this. I didn't make my bed properly one day for 13 weeks. It seemed somewhat beyond my ken. On a battery of intelligence tests, all-day tests, I came out with an IQ of approximately 95. There were some problems with firearms that I had in the service, particularly with 45 automatics. When I was qualifying for an automatic, it jammed, and I tried to fix it up between my legs. They blew whistles. They made them stop. Thank you for, there is, in spite of this background, I was assigned as an air policeman to Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, which is the subsidiary or the auxiliary base for Sandia. They're Star Wars, the same as Atsugi in Japan. Atomic Energy Commission, CIA staff. To be an air policeman. They were supposed to be neat, weren't they? As soon as I arrived there, I was given a clearance form to fill in that was not a confidential clearance, it was not a secret clearance, it was not a top secret clearance, it was a Q clearance. A Q clearance is higher than crypto. A Q clearance at that time was the clearance that was normally given to atomic physicists and attack generals and so forth. The clearance itself was processed by the FBI because I put my high school friends on it. It made some of them high school enemies. At the bottom of this particular clearance is a waiver. The waiver makes the statement, I give the agency, the Atomic Energy Commission, the right to submit me to polygraphs, hypnosis, or the ingestion of truth-inducing substance at their discretion. I signed away my right. Oswald signed away the same right when he signed his crypto clearance. He certainly got a crypto clearance. This is, he wouldn't have served at that suit. It's a ball of contention between others whether Oswald had just a minor, but there are many people that says that he had a crypto clearance. This is one of the ways that under certain conditions a person can allow himself to be drugged and hypnotized at any time during his life by the federal government. We can say that they didn't do it to me or didn't do it to Oswald, but I really think they did. On my case, I'm very sure that they did. There was no other reason for the Q clearance.
Mike, back to the bar. You were acting out a role. Did you have the impression that Oswald similarly was acting out?
Yes, I did. My own particular role was all I knew was I had to be, if not had to be, I could enjoy the privilege of being an alcoholic, communist, scofflaw that could go from one government agency to the other and make good money at it and travel all over the South. I had the same feeling that Oswald felt exactly the same way. I was sincere in what I was saying about, by the way, I'm a born-again Christian now, and I think it's all utter, what I was saying was utterly wrong, but I was sincere when I said it. I had the same feeling about Oswald, that he knew who was employing him, who was pulling his strings, who was pushing him around from place to place, but yet when he spoke of Castro in particular, he was being quite sincere.
Did you have any personal habits or mannerisms that you recall, or that you noticed at that time?
Yes. He was shifty-eyed, which is, fair. He was unable to make eye contact for quite a while. He was in the area of, he was either smirking or servile. He was either admiring or just the opposite. It was the other thing. The strongest thing was in two little words that he said, and that was when he said his wife was out of town. When he said "my wife," his voice dropped a half an octave. His voice dropped into the realm of a real, protective, slightly worried, deep love. And also saying, keep away. Hey, I'll talk to you in the bar, but don't dare come to the house. It was, I talked to Marina Oswald afterwards, too, and this is human, but it's the way I feel. I think that was a very, very sincere love affair. I think that it also had a whole lot of intelligence collections and involvements that I won't go into because I think it was really
You say this meeting took place July?
approximately July 20th. I can give you the date. It would be July the 20th. It would be the day that a thunderstorm occurred at 4 o'clock. Heavy thunderstorm occurred at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right around the 20th of July.
No other contact about Oswald after that time?
The other contact that I had a prior contact to Oswald at that time when he was about 14 years old, and the same person that introduced me to Oswald was employing him as a messenger boy in in a bar they had on Royal Street. Also, this same person was a member of the Civil Air Patrol. I cannot say that he was in the same squadron as Oswald. I can't say it. I don't know. But I do know that he did employ Lee Harvey Oswald as an errand boy in 1954 or 5.
You had contact with Oswald after this?
My contact after that was derivative. On August 1st, or the first Saturday in August, I returned to the same bar. The same person that introduced me said, "It looks like your boy's in trouble, or your boy's a red," or words to that effect. And I'm saying, "Hey, my boy, hey, you're the one that introduced to me. What are you talking about?" And on a cause and effect relationship, I can't make it quite as good a laundry list, but then the idea of getting Oswald out of jail occurred. He wanted me very much to act to get Oswald out of jail. This would take a little side telling on why this means something other important, but I was to be the one to be delegated to get Oswald out of jail. One of Clay Bertrand's facets was that he was a quasi-attorney, and I was a quasi-attorney. I got people out of jail. I had the reputation of getting people out of jail, and he wanted me to do this for Oswald. I went to the phone for the purpose of doing this, and I really couldn't remember Lee Harvey Oswald's name. I knew when I hear Lee Harvey Oswald, you're the guy that defects to Russia, but I can't recall the name on a reverse basis. I turned to this man who, as it turns out, has known Oswald since he was a teenager at least, and I said, "What's his name?" Or what name is he booked under? Besides, it was introduced to me in IU. And he decides to drop that matter entirely, and I said, maybe he's got a false arrest case. Man brightens and says, yes. And I make the initial call to steer him to our mutual attorney. And our mutual attorney, I wish I could say it was Dean Andrews, because it would make it very, very neat. But the best I can do is our mutual attorney was the partner of Stephen Plotkin, who was Dean Andrews' defense attorney. The last Clay Bertrand thing I've got, this one wraps it up on Clay Bertrand. I got a Michoud employee out of jail. Our victory celebration was held at the same bar. The people were inquiring of me, made this thing of same people there, were laughing about, did you give the police your real name? I told them a lie, but heck, it doesn't make any difference whether I tell them a lie or not. It's real right in this place. And I said, no, I didn't. In the booking room was a calculator, and I used the brand name of the calculator. I told them I was Clay Marchand. I wish I could say Bertrand, but that's as close as I can get. So those are the reasons that I say that, hey, I'm the one that's Clay Bertrand. That's it. You've heard it. Great.
You knew Jack Martin?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go by John Martin?
Not to my knowledge, no. I knew Jack Martin, I saw Jack Martin in July. I was introduced to Jack Martin about the 26th or 27th of November. I had seen Jack Martin in between sporadically. Jack Martin and I, since then, have seen each other on occasion since up until 1978.
Would you tell a story about Jack Martin's comments and Guy Bannister the following summer of '64?
Sure. As a matter of, this is a review of material to y'all, actually, and I wasn't there, so, but I'm just repeating stuff to set it up. The secretary of Guy Bannister says that on the day of the assassination, Guy Bannister was utterly distraught, drunk and angry, and he goes upstairs and he discovers Jack Martin rifling his files. He pistol whips Martin, and Martin, who is gutted, Martin wipes off the blood and says, what are you going to do, kill me like you killed Kennedy? And Martin then goes to Tyrrell Infirmary to get patched up, and he calls Jim Garrison and turns in David Ferrie. At that point, what Garrison does with Ferrie is just to accept his alibi that he was duck hunting on an ice rink or something. And Martin Mundy, Guy and Martin get together and say, look, this is crazy. We've been friends for a long time. We've been in the OSS ever since World War I together. We don't want to do this. We're good friends. And from that point on, they patched things up. During this period, Jack was such a colorful character. One of the things that he liked to do, he didn't like to investigate by listening. He liked to investigate by talking. Asking, he wouldn't let you talk. What he would do would be talk out of all kinds of things as fast as he can, doing jive talk and looking to see exactly what you would blink your eyes at. This was his idea of conducting investigation. And he became even stronger that way, really irrational in that he would go into soliloquies on the Katzenjammer Bar's telephones. And it was fun. You could sit over there and listen to Jack and say, murder with so-and-so, I don't care, goddamn, send him over here. I'll tell him, right, let's send him, oh, yes. Of course I know Angelo got the money. And after it was all over, you didn't know what he was talking about at all, but it sounded all very high level. And he's talking about the Kennedy assassination in this way over the telephone constantly. It's better than a Punch and Judy show. This, for one thing, I think he's being drugged out of his mind on top of his alcohol, on top of everything else. They're messing with his mind a little bit. One day, Jack Martin comes up, rushes to me in the same way he talks to you, and then he looks for the expression and says, we've cracked it, we've got it, we know how it went. He's looking in my eyes deeply to see what affection was wonderful. But he was also sincere. He really thought that he and Guy Bannister had the whole ball of wax. They understood it all. Well, maybe they did, but Guy Bannister was dead within a week. Jack Martin went to Baton Rouge. Jack Martin went to work for state police. He went to work as a wiretap man. He went to work for Claude Bannister of Louisiana Security. Now, Claude, if you see Guy and Claude, yeah, that ain't no coincidence. That's his brother. During this same period, I was working as a computer expert for state police. It was a very lively time. I had no idea Jack was in town, but our paths crossed at that particular time and for a protracted length of time in that area.
Did you deal with Jack witness Oswald handing out his leaflet?
Yes. I didn't even know about it from the news. I came in and he told me that my boy was in trouble. That was the first and the only thing I heard of.
Mike,
Sure.
in your conversation with the man who was introduced to you as Al Heidel in the bar and then later told you he was Lee Harvey Oswald, did he mention where he was living at that time?
Yes, he did. A ratty apartment on Magazine Street. This is one of those, that's in my thing. Laundry list of quotes. A ratty apartment on Magazine Street. There was, from his tone, it was, you and I both know that this is only temporary. I felt the same way about my ratty trailer.
What about the fight school?
Okay, thanks. In 1957, I'm down on my luck in New Orleans. It just happened. And I'm looking for no work. It got so bad I even applied for the police department, but I was found psychoanalytically unfit. That was a lot. But at any rate, I'm really down so bad that I look for the shortest enlistment I can find. The shortest enlistment I can find is in the Marine Corps. I sign up for it, I take the papers, and oh boy, they give me one of these intelligence tests. Wow. And give it back to them. They're all enthused. And in my normal, I had a normal pattern of bars. By the way, I no longer drink, thank goodness. But in those days, it was a normal, predictable pattern. In my normal, predictable pattern, a man appears and says, oh, aren't you the man that came in to enlist? I said, yes, I am. And he says, well, so-and-so, and look, I'm gonna give you a little advice. We've looked over your service record, and the Marine boot camp would kill you. Well, yeah. So we have an alternative for you. We will send you to a relaxed, approximately, refresher boot camp, which I was in the Air Force. This is really breaking the rules to send somebody to a refresher boot camp. We will send you to a refresher boot camp, and then we will send you to Nags Head, North Carolina, so that you can study underwater demolition. I went home and I thought, wait, the Marine Corps is going to kill me? Marine boot camp is going to kill me? But I'm a 26-year-old alcoholic, and they're sending me to be a SEAL? It didn't add up. And it never added up until I read Anthony Summers's book, Conspiracy. It didn't add up for 30 years, or 20, however many it is. Then it added up. Yeah, I was going to Nags Head, North Carolina. I was going to Nags Head, North Carolina, to do what I could do best, to be an alcoholic, communist, scofflaw in some iron curtain country. They didn't want me anymore. That's what I can say. Is there a record on it? I doubt it. Is there a record on my being an artichoke? You bet your Bruce there is. They can't get by around that.
Have you written to find what records are on?
How do you, let's say that I am fiddling around with the edges. Whenever a Freedom of Information suit comes up with me, I don't want to be paying the lawyer. I would rather a journalist would do it, or TV station, anything. It doesn't gain you much either, because there is I've been my own lawyer. Clay Bertrand, and besides, after that, I've been my own lawyer, John Michael Powers, my alias. I've been there. I've fought cases all the way to the Supreme Court. I've collected as much as $2,000 at a time. Yeah. But the real, what I am after, I am after three things, really. I'm after one little thing called a polygraph. What I've got is a laundry list. There's one thing about laundry lists that ain't any yes, no, maybe here, maybe that. The laundry list is either this or that. I want a polygraph on my laundry list. There are some areas, hey, I just really love to do hypnosis because I haven't had any good sodium pentothal since Project Artichoke. And lastly, I would like the Freedom of Information Act. But my doing it for myself would be, there wouldn't be a lot to gain.
You're the only one that can get those records.
Well,
but classified, you're the only one that can write an FOI and request Mike Smith or whatever aliases you use. If I write them, then they'll be withheld on those records.
do you know about any forms that
If you write to the specific agency involved, or you can write to all of them, okay? And you write under the Freedom of Information Act, I request the following, blah, 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 blah. They are required to respond within 10 days.
Plus, it has to be notarized.
No, it doesn't have to be notarized. If they withhold some stuff,
Your signature on the Freedom of Information has to be notarized because they won't release it to just anybody who claims to be.
so unless you're asking for your own stuff. They may or may not send stuff to you. If they decline because of the signature, that's notarized, and then they will release it to you. But that's the only way. If it's classified material, free is classified. The only way to get it out is to you.
Now, this is entirely frivolous, and we just totally skirted around that other subject, and I'm so glad that the forum has come up at this point. Back in the middle of the Jim Garrison days, Ramsey Clark, he's Attorney General, Attorney General of Florida. Ramsey Clark gets on CBS, and I loved it. And Ramsey Clark says, Clay Bertrand exists. Clay Bertrand is not Clay Shaw. Clay Bertrand is a pseudonym used by a New Orleans area homosexual, and we are withholding his name for his protection. Are they protecting this poor guy from Oswaldian trauma? Or are they protecting him from being an accessory after the fact in the assassination of a president? They never once mentioned whether Clay Bertrand is Turkey. But they come up with the general thing. I want a freedom of information on that act. First of all, I want to know if Mike Smith is Clay Bertrand. I really do. And the other one is I want to know how they caught him.
All right, well, maybe we can take care of this. If, let's assume for the sake of argument, if Gary or somebody else was to prepare a Freedom of Information request letter for your signature, and we send that to you, would you sign that and get that off?
I'd love doing it.
On the provision that if you got any materials back, that you would send those copies?
The only way that I would do it would be if it was through your address. I would not do it through my own address. In other words, not for any reasons of secrecy, but anything like that, because that's the only way it's meaningful. The third party and a third party journalistic entity is the only way that it is meaningful.
Well, we're not worth $10. Okay, thank you, Mike. Oh, you get one?
You just had to come to my address, never believe anything I mean.
Did you ever know Susan Bremer?
Susan whom?
Bremer?
Bremer. In New Orleans?
Or anywhere else?
No.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
You mentioned Jagger.
Oh, Jagger, stop.
Jagger Child Stovall. Okay, polygraph material, I was offered the job of being in 1960, early 1960, I was offered the job as being a lookout man at Jagger Child Stovall for a counterfeiting ring. They printed bad stuff at Jagger's Child, or at least they told me. This is a construction. They never handed me a bill and said this is a bad bill, look how pretty it is. They merely recruited me for the job, quit my post office job, and come to work at Jagger Child Stovall, where it will be so nice, we'll all make money together.
What all government agencies did you work for?
I worked for, let's see, let's start in reverse. I worked for Chrysler Mission, NASA. The one before that is really my favorite. I'll give you, I'm not going to name it, I'll give you what it's famous for. It's famous for employing, I think, 3/4 of the Americans that died in the Bay of Pigs. It is famous for once being owned by an atomic energy commissioner and a head of the CIA. It is famous for being owned after that by a man who was treasurer for the Ku Klux Klan while he was J. Edgar Hoover's chief informant for the Ku Klux Klan. That firm is Hayes Aircraft in Birmingham. It began being owned by Charles McComb, or by McComb. And afterwards, Hayes took it over, and Hayes indeed was, as I knew then, chief money grabber for the Ku Klux Klan. As I know now, he was also an informant for CIA. And it was high-class aerospace stuff. Before then, for the Port of Embarkation in Baton Rouge, Department of Air Force at the Port of Embarkation, where we handled all of the arms shipments to Pakistan and so on. MSTS shipments, arms shipments to the other. That's three of them. The other government jobs were Post Office and Commodity Credit Corporation. So three sensitive defense jobs, and Post Office was where I went whenever I was broke. I walked in the post office and go to work.
Did you say it was that Hayes company was a CIA firm?
Oh, yes, sir. Well, it was owned, at one time owned by McComb, who was, yeah, sure was. Bay of Pigs, all the Bay of Pigs pilots came from it, McComb owned it, and sure was. They didn't like me. Birmingham didn't like me at all. So I had to leave.
You had mentioned Thompson,
Yeah. Okay. I found a very understanding journalist in Dallas Morning News, Howard Swenson. I presented my story to him, but I didn't present it It just really wasn't newsworthy by itself, but he gave me a sympathetic ear, which was nice, really good. Right? So I decided I would try to contact Marina Oswald to see if some of the things that I said would jive with what he said, and it was through Earl Goals. Earl Goals provided me with Marina's telephone number, and I talked to her for about a half hour. And I, by the way, on that conversation, she loved Oswald also. Well, that's about it. Well, she is such a charming and witty, and she knows how to use Russian and English idioms both, and mix them up, when to pull around the accent. Yeah. Oswald did love her deeply.
So this was recently when you talked to Marina?
This, not recent, or, this was 1981, end of 81. She said, no, Lee never drank. What can you say? I was never out of town and Lee never drank. Well, there it goes, Lee, I guess you're right.
But he drank in your presence?
Oh, he got a bag on. Oh, did he get drunk? Yeah. Oh, there's evidence that Oswald had a big problem. The reason Oswald didn't drink was because he couldn't drink. In an enlisted man's club, he pours a drink on the head of an NCO. This is a behavior problem. He also throws a drink in Marina's face at one time. DeMaureen Smith, he flirted with other women, and there were indications at the time, Oswald always had a temper problem when he drank and really couldn't hold his liquor.
As a result, he didn't drink much at all.
Right. He was a man who had to, the life he was living, he had a very tight, controlled life to live. He was, his constant. On this level, he was constantly worried about survival and constantly worried about hanging on to a family, because in the family he was in, families didn't stick together and families had trouble surviving.
In your opinion, he was an agent at some time?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea of what your opinion is of what kind of agent he was?
Yes, sir. I'll put it just this way. There is no possible way that you, I, anybody in this room, or any super genius in 1959 could slide into Soviet Russia in an insolent fashion unless they had the cooperation of both the KGB and the American intelligence, let's say the CIA for short stuff. And if you agree to that, he worked for a cooperative section of the CIA and the KGB, whoever they may be.
Got to ask you, probably don't want.
Don't know. I'd like to know.
I didn't know you had
Yeah. The Carl Bannister is mentioned, I think a New York Times index, somebody, Carl Bannister's his name, New York Times index, something like that, and there's a picture of him, and he looks just like Guy, so.
Was he working for the Louisiana State Police at the same time you were?
He was, yes, he was a lieutenant, a lieutenant for headquarters division. My assumption is that it was working with wiretaps in the security division.
But you didn't meet him though?
Not to my knowledge. Oh, no. And I was working in the computer division when they were putting in a UNIVAC computer for message switching and license plates and so on.
You don't know when it's time, but can we bring up, should we bring up before we buy this time?
Well, let's put that off right now.
Yeah.
And it's no direct line. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. How you doing?
Motion was